Right, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome to the show Maisie Adams. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Good, good.
Obviously you're in the middle of your tour at the moment. Coming to
Yeah,
Southampton relatively soon. It's buzzed. It's a big tour. 32 dates, if I've counted up
yeah,
correctly.
yeah. And we're adding more in the new year. We're just sort of finalising It's a weird time at the moment, Simon, because everybody is on tour or trying to be on tour
Yeah.
after the last 18 months. Like nobody's been able to do it. So suddenly, everybody, if there's a spare date in a venue's diary, we're like dogs with food. We're just all around it. We're like, oh, I'll have it, I'll have it. Which is why when you look at everybody's tour date, it's so annoying when you put out your tour dates and people immediately like reply on Twitter. They'll go, oh, who's planned that? You know, you're going to Exeter and then the next day it's Glasgow, and you're like, honestly. It's just that Glasgow was free that day. And if I don't take it that day, I don't go to Glasgow because every man and his dog is trying to gig. So yeah, it's a bit of a zigzagging around the country. It's everywhere. But yeah, we've got 30 odd booked in at the moment, and then hopefully we're going to get some more in at the start of 2023. But it's my first proper like big
Yeah.
tour, so it's really exciting. It's really lovely. Obviously, this show has just done a whole month at the Edinburgh Fringe, which is kind of like the first place that you get to sort of see who turns up, if anybody. Like you don't know. Do you know what I mean? Though seriously, I was like, oh God, I don't know, because I'm. It's quite weird. I think I don't want to say I thrived in a pandemic, but certainly like I started to get quite a fair bit of telly and stuff in a pandemic. I don't know what that says about me, that I can only do well career wise when everything else is shut down.
Yeah.
It's quite sadistic. Um, but it was like the first time I got to see what sort of audience would come, who would come, and I was so chuffed. Like my audience, it turns out, are absolute legends. They're really nice people. I love the show. Obviously, it's the first time as well that reviewers come to the show, so it's nice to have it officially approved as a good show. Not that it should matter, but it's nice when
They say it's
some
good.
journalist comes along and whacks 4 or 5 stars on it. That always helps with the old self-esteem. So then taking it out on the road and you know taking it to people who've been brilliant enough to want to buy a ticket and you know spend their evening coming and watching comedy. That's exactly who I want to spend my evenings with. So it's just been a real pleasure to be going to all of these places
Yeah.
and seeing all of these people and doing the show for them. It's great.
There's a line in your press release which says that your first ever gig you did an hour. Is that really true?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
insane.
I know I've spoken about this before, but basically, like, so where I grew up, it was very, very rural, and there wasn't really like Leeds is my nearest city, but really, you know, there was no. That was a good sort of 40-minute drive into town. Where I was a very small village. That I always sort of say, if you need to picture it, like imagine sort of Vicar of Dibley or This Country kind of vibes. Average age was like 112. So trying to start stand-up comedy there was no open mic scene at
Yeah.
all. So my first gig was actually at a fringe of a literature festival, the Ilkley Literature Festival, which is like a big book festival. They also did this like fringe where they were like, oh, we want local, you know, artists doing stuff. You can apply and you can do poetry, or you could do a play, or you could do dance or something. Basically, like, what's your talent?
Yeah.
Apply. And I filled it in and was like, oh, I fancy doing stand-up comedy. So I just sort of gave it a go and said, yeah, can I apply for a spot, please? And they came back. They were like, yeah, Thursday, 9 till 10 p.m. So, but I didn't think that was weird, Simon. I was like, oh, okay, great. Because when I'd gone to go and watch comedy, when I'd gone into Leeds to watch, you know, these big, you know, I remember going to see like Lee Mack in Sheffield or
Yeah.
Lee Evans in Leeds, and when I would go and see these comedians bring their shows, they're doing at least an hour, like I'm going to be doing in
Yeah.
Southampton. Like it was normal to me, so I didn't think it was weird until I did it, got the buzz for it, like absolutely adored it. I was straight away hooked on it, and I was like sending off for spots at these other open mic nights, and they'd go, yeah, yeah, have you got have you got a video? We'd like to see a 5-minute clip. And I'd go, I've got an hour. I'd be Dropboxing them this thing that'd be taking up all the memory on the laptop. So, yeah, I didn't clock it was weird until all of these promoters would be like, sorry, you've been going 1 week and you've got an hour. I go, yeah, what's the matter?
Do you remember your opening line?
God, no, it was like a one-liner. Oh God, it would have been like I think I thought like, oh, I'll get like 5 jokes out that were just like one-liner jokes. Because I think that's what Peter Kay used to do, and I used to love Peter Kay.
Yeah.
He'd tell like 5 naff jokes, like proper Christmas crackers, just to be like, come on, loosen up, here you go. So it would have been all of the, like, I can't even, it would have been so bad, like, so, you know, what goes ha 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 thud, a man laughing his head off, that sort of level, like 5 of them, and then I'd have got into like anecdotal stuff. But I mean, I did have a clip of it, as I said, because I used to send it to promoters, and I've got it somewhere, and I don't think I'll ever muster up the courage to watch it back. But I remember the last time I did, I was like, I mean, it is an hour, but it's really a 10-minute set stretched over an hour.
Yeah, just
yeah,
getting
but I
every
loved
bit of it.
Yeah, I loved it.
Were you not nervous at all? Because I've tried stand up, and like doing 5 minutes is like the scariest
It's
thing in the world.
terrifying. It's terrifying. And I remember feeling physically sick before going on. And was really, really nervous. And do you know what? I was having this conversation with somebody at Edinburgh, because I was doing like a line-up show, and we all had to do 5. It was like a charity show, and we were all doing 5 to 7 minutes. And everybody on that bill was like, it was like me, it was John Bishop, it was Rhys Nicholson, Jess Foster-Q. Like it was some, you know, really, really good names. And we were all saying 5 to 7 minutes is way harder than when you get booked for like a 20. Because 20, it's like a marathon, not a sprint, and you warm them up and you sort of have time to get them on side. And I don't know, I feel a lot more comfortable doing a 20-minute set at these, you know, when you go and do like your Fridays and Saturday nights in the clubs. In fact, like that gig I was mentioning to you before we came on air, as we were talking about that gig at the Wedge in Portsmouth. And I love that gig, and it's always just 20 minutes and you crack on. I think if you asked me to do 5 minutes at the Wedge, I'd be way more nervous. It's still terrifying, a 5 to 7 minutes, because you've just got to get straight in there. And you can't be doing your ha-ha thud jokes if you're doing 5 minutes.
I mean, you can.
You can, but it'll be the last gig you do.
Obviously, as well, there's a big TV show which is ending this year, which you have appeared on quite a bit, and obviously, was it one of your first TV appearances? Mock the Week.
It was one of them, yeah. And Mock the Week was I mean, that was the show that when I was a kid, I can remember I'd come home and I'd go up. We had this like family computer in the living room, and I would get home and literally go straight onto YouTube and like type in Mock the Week, and then like some of my favourite comedians' names, or Mock the Week scenes we'd like to see, and just I would just spend hours watching those like unlikely things to hear on, or all of those. It's been a huge part of, I guess, like my comedy, to sound at the risk of sounding very earnest here, but like my comedy education, like it was really, really huge in terms of developing my love of comedy. So to have ever thought that I'd even get on it once was wild. When I got booked for it the first time, I remember that feeling massive for me, and stepping onto that set that you've watched as a kid is a really sort of surreal moment. And you're on with, you know, some of the names that you watched. You know, Dara's there coming to you, and you're doing you're going up to the mic following Hugh Dennis. It's all quite surreal. And so, as I say, to have done it once would have felt really, I'd have felt really privileged to have done it. To have ended up, I believe somebody told me the other day that I am joint with Zoe Lyons on the second most featured woman on it. Angela Barnes, obviously, like storming ahead, number one, and then so to have racked up, certainly, you know, an impressive number of appearances is just a bonus, really, because it's meant that they've sort of approved me as much as, you know, that they like me as much as I've loved them. And it's been a real joy being on that show and seeing all of like the new faces that have come up as well, you know, since I've been on it as well. Like they've started getting more of, like, I guess, my generation of comics, and it's been a fantastic platform for, I think, you know, when people talk about how they discover new comedy now, yes, it's, you know, we've got TikTok and Instagram Reels and all of that, and they're fantastic. And I think it's been wonderful to see some of those comedians also come through on Mock the Week. And we'll always have shows that champion the sort of big names and best of British comedy, that are established. But I think it is important to have these shows that make a point of taking on new talent and showcasing it, and that's what they did for me, and I'll sort of be eternally grateful for it. Really, I think it'll be really missed as well. What I really noticed when you get booked for these different shows, you know, you can get booked for something and it'll go out and people like it, and then, you know, you're waiting to get the next one. I remember with Mock the Week, the engagement with it on Twitter, and you know, people really join in. It feels like a real sort of they've all got their private jokes and running gags throughout the series that people join in on. And especially in the last few seasons where the audience were on Zoom, you see that people really really loved it and really felt part of this sort of family that Mock has cultivated, I think, over the years. So I'll be sad to see it go, but really I'm sort of just grateful to it, and I just feel so sort of honoured to have been part of it, because it's as I say, it's the sort of thing that when I was a kid I would watch it, but would never in a million years think of being on it.
Yeah.
So
you joined a list of like legendary comedians that have been on. Oh, I always forget that John Oliver was on Mock the Week.
Yeah,
That's insane.
It's mad when you think of like about what some of them have gone on to do, and you know, it is massive, really, and it's gone through such massive shifts as well. Like you know, when you look at some of the ones on the repeat channels now, and you look at them, and I think the producers would say,
I love the way you said repeat channels. Just say Dave.
Yeah, I know.
We know it's Dave.
We know what we mean. We know what we mean. It could be GOLD. Could be GOLD. Thank you. Could be gold. But there's some episodes where you look at it and you're like, oh God, that, you know, these are big names. But it was basically, they visually it looked like my dad in 7 different fonts. And then you look at it now, and it's so much more sort of diverse, and it's so much more. As we've seen, championing of new talent, of women, of you know, people that are just sort of not one type of comedian, and I hope that whatever fills that gap on BBC in that comedy slot, or if Mock goes somewhere else, that sort of spirit continues of broadening the comedy scene in the UK.
You know, Dave loved taking on the old comedy programs.
They do love it. They do love it. Listen, I won't knock Dave. Dave has started to. That's why I said repeat channels, because I think Dave used to be like the home of repetition. But now they got some good original comedy on there.
Hypothetical,
Outsiders. There's a lot of stuff on there.
Taskmaster started on Dave.
Exactly. See.
And that's a show. That's an amazing show.
That's a show. Yeah.
That's the one. Is that like, so? In terms of like TV shows to get on now, is that one to aim for?
I think Taskmaster is a huge one that people, you know, and I think like when I spoke about the community that Mock had, I think that's what we see now with shows like Taskmaster, and you see it a lot with podcasts as well. Like they cultivate. The similar sort of reaction that I had to when I first did Mock was when I did Off Menu, the podcast.
Yeah.
Where they've got like this real cultivated following that go with these running gags, that go with these jokes, and I think Taskmaster has that too, of a real dedicated audience that that get really excited for each new season with each new cast and each new challenge. And yeah, I think that is the one now that's like, oh, that'd be amazing to get on that.
So obviously, you're coming to Southampton 23rd of October at MAST.
Yes,
Wonderful
yes.
venue. What can we actually expect from your tour? Because obviously, we've really only seen you on TV programs. You know, you get your little bits and everything. But what can we expect from like an hour from you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, basically, I think when I wrote this show, I just wanted it to be really happy and really excited. It's why it's called Buzzed. It's about all the things that I'm buzzed about, all the things that I'm looking forward to. I didn't want to look back and sort of moan or dissect the last 18 months. As much as people go, well, it's something we've all been through together. Everybody's had such different experiences of it. And I mean, I do joke about how sick we all are of talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's quite relatable, and I think we all are ready now to just sort of start looking ahead, start looking forward. There's been so much for us to be down and out about that.
And there still is.
Yeah, and there still is. So I kind of wanted to give a show that was a bit of escapism. I think it's I think it's important to have that. That's what comedy always was for me, was something that you could watch and just sort of, oh, I'll enter this person's world for a bit and laugh at the tiny stupid things of life that we all can laugh at, whatever experience you've had. So I just wanted to do a happy show, really. So it's optimistic, it's upbeat, it's happy, and it's good fun. I really love doing the show. Doing it when you go up to the Edinburgh Fringe and you're doing it for 30 days in a row, and you've basically got 2 weeks off before going on tour again, where you're doing it every night. It's got to be a show that you love, because otherwise you are going to get sick of it very, very quickly. And I can hand on heart say, every day I was absolutely loving it. I think the audience that I've been lucky enough to attract are really great people, really nice people. I've loved as well this last year, I've been lucky enough to do tour support for some bigger comedians. I've been the tour support for Jason Manford and Josh Widdicombe and John Bishop. And that's been hugely helpful, of sort of seeing what sort of audience come to what sort of shows, and what kind of thing they expect from a tour show, because I've not really done that before. So that sort of mixture of a bit of crowd work and then getting into the main show and doing big venues as well. That's the big thing for me is, a lot of these venues are 300, 400 seaters. And so when they first said, we're putting you on in these venues, I thought, are you mad? And some of them, there's like 500. Leeds City Varieties, which is like my hometown one. Yeah. That's where I used to go and watch the pantomime every Christmas. When they said that, I said, are you mad? And then it's sold out. So it's really, really exciting. Southampton, I'm really, really excited for. I've never been to MAST, or MAST as you guys down south. I should say it how you say it.
No, I'd say MAST.
Southampton MAST. But yeah, I'm very, very excited for it. Really, really excited. And I'm loving being on tour. It's great fun.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to the gig as well. I've never seen you before. Obviously, I've never seen you on TV and things like that. So really looking forward to that. I really should ask, as this is a radio station that plays music. When you're touring, what do you listen to? Are you a podcaster, or do you listen to playlists?
I do like a podcast. It's quite nice to. I don't actually listen to a lot of comedy podcasts though. I quite like sort of in-depth interview kind of stuff. But really, music is where it's at for me. I've got like a nice little playlist for when the audience are coming in. I think that's hugely important. Is like getting the audience, because it's kind of in there. It's, when you come into the theatre and you sat down, it's playing on in the background, and you'll be talking to, maybe with whoever you've come with, or you'll be going through on your phone and stuff, but it's still something in the background that I think should kind of reflect the nature of your energy on stage and your background. So I always get very upbeat songs. I like, something that's a bit indicative of me. So I like a lot of Arctic Monkeys on there, of course. Yes. being a Yorkshire lass.
Yeah.
I'm massively into Fontaine's DC. I love them. Really, really like that. And they do some great they've got some great songs that are really like pumped up pre-show. And then I've got on my playlist, there's this band, they're called the Hot 8 Brass Band. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
They were featured in a lot of the like women's Euros and in fact, and I think the men's Euros last year, the sort of football advertising on there, because they're kind of they're like the sort of brass bands that go to football games. They're originally, I think, like a New Orleans brass band, but they do covers, and they did this one of Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division, and it's really, really good. It's really sort of kind of carnival season, summer, proper brass. It's very in your face. I really, really like it. So that's on the playlist. But I love music, and I've got quite an eclectic taste. But before I go on stage, it's just got to be upbeat. That's all I need. Just upbeat music. Yeah.
I love that. I love the fact you've got an eclectic taste, because mine's very eclectic. I think the best shuffle I've ever had on a playlist was when my mum was in my car and it went from Take That to Slayer, and she didn't know how to react.
There we go. I love it. Yeah, I've kind of got like on my Spotify. I just press like on all any song that I like, and then go on and then just shuffle that rather than play playlists or whatever, because I quite like that sort of juxtaposition of it going from something quite mellow. I think when I was yesterday, I was like, I'd just got home and I just put Spotify on whilst I was unpacking, and it literally went from I think it went from Tony Bennett, The Way You Look Tonight, straight into who was it? It was somebody like, all I've got in my head now is Slayer. It obviously wasn't Slayer, but it was something like it went from Tony Bennett. I think it went from Tony Bennett to something like Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones. It was quite sort of like
big
attacky.
difference.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. We just did a podcast really recently, me and Jeff Lloyd, who's a great sort of journalist and big sort of music fan, where we basically like filled in each other on an area of music that the other person didn't know about. So his job was to like educate me on solo Paul McCartney, and my job was to educate him on noughties EDM. And I don't think I've ever laughed so much because I had to curate a playlist for him.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up with you was this artist called As Soon As Possible Rocky. And that absolutely killed me. I was like, I think you mean ASAP Rocky, but we can call him As Soon As Possible Rocky if you'd like. Yeah, incredible. As Soon As Possible Rocky. That'll stay with me for a while.
I think that he needs to change his name to that now.
Yeah, As Soon As Possible Rocky. I love it.
Amazing. Right, so 23rd of October, Southampton MAST. Really looking forward to it. People can get tickets now.
Yeah, I'm buzzing for it. I don't think I've ever gigged in Southampton before, which is mad. I've been to Southampton to get to a gig on the Isle of Wight, but I've never gigged in Southampton. So I'm very, very excited for it. Really buzzing.
We're looking forward to having you. And thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And best of luck with the tour. And we'll see you in October.
Thanks so much, Simon. Yeah, see you soon.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.